Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you kind of sharing some time here with me in the weight room tonight. It's been so cool. I feel like I've almost found I've found a place, even though I don't compete, I feel like I've kind of like found a place that matches like my interest.
It's not something that I thought 5 years ago even that I would be into. Um, but it's not, it's like I live and breathe it now. Before bodybuilding, I actually competed in pageants. So I did like the USA system and the America system. Um, and I didn't ever fare super well, but I'm 5'2" and stocky. So that's not the type of person that is wearing a crown and a sash. So eventually I learned that and realized it wasn't long term going to be a thing that was for me. And also my then boyfriend, now husband, and I were talking about getting married, and you can't compete in pageants when you're married. So my husband started getting into bodybuilding in 2014 when we met. So I went to the gym with him. I trained with him, but I didn't do like the food stuff and I didn't track everything. Um, and I always said, I am not doing that. That is too extreme. Like it takes over your life. I'm not doing it. But then once I got out of pageants, then it was like, I needed something competitive to do. I always did sports, in high school and college. So I needed something. So I was like, well, I'll try it. I'll do bikini for one show just to see if I can do it and see what it's like going through a prep. So I joined the coach that was coaching my husband. My husband also coaches, but we decided that was not a good plan to have in our house. So I messaged his coach, asked a ton of questions, told him I was only doing it once and never doing it again. And he was fine with that. So I started with him in January of 2019.
Gotcha. Okay. And bikini, was that for any specific reason, or was it just like, okay, this seems like something that I fit into at the time the best? Like, where did that come from?
So it felt like that was so wellness didn't exist then. So at the time it felt like that was the most appropriate for me, and the next like so and so this next thing up was figure, and I didn't want to grow my upper body that large, so bikini seemed like it was good, but my legs were too big for bikini. I had too much muscle from training with my husband, so I was constantly trying to run my legs down the same as I was doing in pageants because they wanted small legs too. So I was kind of used to that. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this. And then I did two shows in 2019, and both they had announced that wellness was coming in 2020. They just hadn't added it yet. And both of the shows, they said, try wellness next year.
You mentioned like that you couldn't be married and do pageants. That's like an official rule.
Yes, they have some like ancient rules. Like you can't, you can never have been pregnant. You can't be the guardian of anyone, like old school. And that there's a lot of politics and crap in it too that was not my style. Like I like that bodybuilding is straightforward. The best physique on stage is awarded. I mean, you're barely wearing any clothes, so it's not like anything can be hidden. So I like that. The harder you work, the more that you put into it, the more structured you are, the more you're going to get back.
Getting into like when you first started, you mentioned that it was kind of like before you started, it was like, I don't want to do that. It's so extreme. I'm not really into that, going that deep into this. When you did finally start, though, did you still have those reservations of like, I don't know if this is going to be for me for those reasons? I don't know if, I don't know if I'm going to be able to commit to a diet like that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to not miss something, whether that's training or, an extra hour, get that extra hour of sleep I need or whatever. Like, was there any reservations about the extremeness of it even when you were first starting it?
Yes. It was not something that I was going into like, I am so sure that I can do this and succeed and win my show. Luckily, I had an idea of what went into a prep because my husband had already prepped a couple shows. So I knew about the cardio and I knew about strict dieting and not eating anything off of the plan and all of that. I knew that that was part of it. I just didn't know what it felt like to actually follow that plan. So that's what I mean when I say like my first prep, I hated it because like it just got harder and harder and harder to levels that I definitely didn't expect going in. Um, and you know, there's like a dysmorphia that kind of comes with it. The better you look, the worse you think you look until you get to show, and then you're kind of looking in hindsight and you're like, I was crazy. So that's really what got me. I didn't decide to do another one until after my first show, and like a couple days had passed, and I was doing what I said I was going to do. I was going to go back to my normal routine. I wasn't going to do a reverse diet or anything. And then I was like, no, I like, now that I'm doing my normal stuff that I was prior, I definitely missed the bodybuilding version. So that's why I went back.
It's funny because I was actually talking to somebody yesterday, and we were talking about how it's you have this like strictness to everything, but it also gives you this. And I'm like I said, I'm not even a competitor. I just kind of like enjoy training really hard, eating on a specific meal plan. And even I can notice like I feel accomplished even after just like, oh, I got that meal done. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I did something productive. Whereas otherwise, like, yeah, I might do some things throughout the day, maybe at work or whatever that make me, feel fulfilled in some way. But like this brings me fulfillment in every single thing I do because I know that that thing is bringing me closer to my goal. And it's like, there's not that many other things in life like that can possibly do that on like a almost like a checklist basis day in and day out.
Yeah, and I think it also, like, those values and those abilities tie into all other parts of your life that have nothing to do with bodybuilding. Like learning how to, I mean, my schedule in order to get the bodybuilding stuff done has to be planned out from the moment that I wake up to the time that I go to bed. I know what I'm doing every hour of the day, every minute of the day. And that structure helps in everything else. It helps in the housework that I have to get done, the normal chores, the normal things with the dogs that I need to get done, other life goals outside of bodybuilding. It helps because I'm planning them. If I'm going to do it, it has to be planned. I have to know when I'm going to do it or it's not going to get done. And then knowing that if you do the things you're supposed to do, it leads to this goal helps in any goal. So I'm a lot more productive and I get a lot more things done in bodybuilding and outside of it compared to when I was in the pageant world.
And you mentioned that thing that prep was so hard and like you had never kind of experienced anything like that in a way. But was there anything that you could compare within your life like that you look back on and say, okay, I got through that hard situation, so I know I can get through this? Or was it just truly like that unique experience of prep?
So that wasn't my mindset the first time. I definitely did not think it was going to get as hard as it did with the hunger and everything. So if I could change one thing about that prep, it would be just focusing on getting the things done and like learning how to enjoy it all. But I definitely do now, like in tough moments where I'm like, I could eat everything in this house right now. I'm like, but I've gotten through these life situations. This is nothing compared to those things. So I cannot eat the Pop Tart. Like,
Yeah.
so now, but that first time, and I didn't do any research. The only experience in thing that I had was seeing my husband do it, which he's a man, and that's completely different. And being to the few shows that I was at when he competed. So now there's, I think, a lot more out like on Instagram and social media and stuff that you can kind of follow and learn. And there's a lot more information. But back then, that first time, I didn't do any research at all. I just was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people start like that. It's just like this experience that they want to have. And you don't think, okay, well, I'm gonna do this again and again. So there's really no point in kind of learning more about it. It's just like this experience. And then the experience happens and then you do it again and again and you learn from that first experience. It's so funny. I think
Yeah.
Life is oftentimes like that. But going back to kind of what you said about like you have this life structure, and I can kind of really relate to that because I feel like any given day I kind of know what I'm going to be doing. And I love that because it does offer me that like sense of security and knowing, but it's also sometimes like a little overwhelming because I know like I have to get this done at this time or it's bleeding over into this time that I should be doing something else. Does it ever
Yeah.
feel like that to you? And how do you manage that?
Yeah. I have gotten a lot better at trying to just take one task in one day at a time, which is a lot easier said than done. Especially if you are a planner, you like to know way ahead. But it can get overwhelming. But prior to bodybuilding, I knew the things that needed to get done and they would eventually get done, but there was not a lot of structure at all. But that also allowed me a lot of spontaneity. I would go on random trips. I'd be like, I'm going to go see my aunt 4 hours away today. I'm just going to get in the car and go, and I'll get Chick-fil-A on the way. And like that is probably the thing that I miss the most and the thing that I enjoy more in the off season, because the off season is a little bit more relaxed. You can kind of shift things around a little bit more as far as like the bodybuilding side so that you can make life happen a little bit more. So I think for right now, the way that I get through that tough part is just trying to focus on a lesser time frame at a time, and then allowing myself the off season for a looser schedule. So it's still structured. The structure doesn't go away, but taking into account that there has to be like extreme and then there has to be relaxed too.
Yeah, and that creating that balance. And I think a lot of people misinterpret what balance means. I think a lot of people think, okay, if I'm spending X amount of time doing this, then I also get to spend X amount of time doing that, And to me,
Yeah.
it's more like I'm putting in a lot of hard work now and I'm enjoying the benefits of that hard work later. That's kind of like, to me, a lot of times what balance means. And I think it's different for everybody, of course, but I do think culturally we have this idea of balance is like 50-50. The scale has to be, if I'm spending 8 hours at my job, I have to also spend 8 hours, partying and watching Netflix. And, I think it just comes, I think, with learning kind of like what you want in life too, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
After that first show and you said you did bikini, was there any, because it wasn't necessarily like the best fit for you compared to wellness, did you get that feedback to where it's like, okay, you because obviously wellness wasn't around then, but like, was there anything saying this is what you have to do, and then maybe you may be getting a little bit discouraged about it because you knew, okay, this is kind of like what my body type is, and it's hard, it's really more challenging for me to fit into this category. So was there any hesitancy to like continue, I guess?
I did not process the this is my body type thing until I switched to wellness. I was like, I thought bikini was for me. I thought that was appropriate. When they announced that wellness was coming out, I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm bikini. I'm definitely bikini. And then in 2020, I went back to a regional show and tried bikini again, and I wasn't even in the first call out. In the first two shows, I won. But at that point, they had implemented wellness, so they had changed what they wanted for wellness and what they wanted for bikini, and I was what they wanted in wellness, trying to be in bikini. So I didn't place well, and I was upset. And one of the judges, came over to me. This was still at prejudging, and said, "You look phenomenal. You're just not doing the right class." So I was still against it, but my coach threw me into wellness, and I learned how to do the front pose really quickly and went back on stage and won the overall for that. And then we were planning a national show 3 weeks later. So then I had to decide, what are we going to do? They just basically like smacked me down completely and said, do not do bikini ever again. But I thought I was. So me and my husband and my coach were constantly comparing photos of just me and everyone else. And I was like, that's when it finally clicked. I do have this lower body muscle that I've been trying to get rid of that I thought was fat, but it's really not fat, when really most people think the opposite. They think they have a ton of muscle and it's not. So I was more resistant because I thought I had a different body type than what I actually have. Once I accepted what I was made of, then I was like, well, yes, then I'll do wellness.
And at what point did you kind of figure out or start to think like, hey, I'm pretty good at this and maybe I can see where this takes me?
Probably not until junior nationals this past year. I was consistently placing well. Like the only bad placing I had gotten was that bikini show where they said I wasn't bikini. Um, National shows, I was first call out, top two, top four. Um, so I don't think I really recognized that I might be able to take it far until I won my pro card. Because I won my pro card and then I won the overall at at the same show. And then looking back at photos, there was like this disconnect where I'm like looking at my photos, I'm like, I look great, but I don't feel like I look like that. You know, like when I'm standing in the mirror, I don't feel like that's what I look like. Um, but looking at the photos, I was like, that's a good competitor. And then over the summer last year, just trying to connect those two things is finally when I was like, okay, now let me set these crazy goals then. If I think I can do it, if I did this well, let me see how much further I can get.
And how do you connect those? Like, what does it take, or what did it take for you to really finally see that this person in this picture is also me?
Look, I looked at those pictures a lot and I still do because I know, so I teach posing. So I work with a lot of girls, and I know it's very common for like this kind of body dysmorphic thing to happen in bodybuilding because you're constantly trying to be better. So you set these expectations for yourself. And then when you look at your pictures or you look in the mirror, you don't see what you think you should look like. So then you think you look terrible. And looking back at what I have accomplished helps me remind myself you are this person. Even if you don't feel like it right now, you've still done all these things and it didn't go away just because you feel bad right now. Um, but I think that's still like it's still a work in progress. Like I'm not, we're, I have a show coming up and the goal is to win so that I can get an Olympia qualification. But even saying that sounds crazy to me that I'm trying to qualify for the Olympia. But I know it's realistic, but it also sounds insane.
No, it's funny because a lot of people say like they don't see themselves the same way that they would see a similar person that they're standing next to. It's crazy because bodybuilding to me seems so unique in the way that like you have all these positive benefits of like doing the work and like the journey, but then the process of like getting to, or like the final destination, or not the final maybe, but the destination of reaching that, peaked on stage look, it's like what you're doing all this work for. And that can be one of the most challenging times to actually like feel the wealth of things that you've been doing the whole time. It's just such like a paradox to me.
Yeah. So the process of getting to the stage and like the off season and then the prep and the grueling and the cardio and all of that is ugly. Like if you look at it from the outside in, it's like, why would you do that? And I think that's why I didn't love the process until I got all the way through it and I got on stage and I got off of stage and I had time to reflect. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, wait, in order for me to get all of my cardio done in prep, I wake up at 3 a.m. on work days, do my cardio, go to work, come home, do more cardio, go to bed. But when I'm looking back, I'm like, those 3 a.m. cardio sessions weren't that bad because they got me to this. But sometimes it's a Tuesday and you're tired, you're waking up like, why am I getting on this bike? Like, why did I decide to do this? Um, but I think it's also important. And I think that bodybuilding also teaches you that if you decide to do something and you say you're going to do it, you have to do it. So unless there's like extenuating circumstances that you can't or you shouldn't, you don't just give up on something because it's difficult. So that's what got me ultimately through the first prep. I was like, I'm never doing this again. Why would you? But I'm like, I signed up to do it. I said I was going to do it. So I'm going to finish it and then I'm never going to do it again. And then that became a lie.
Well, like I said, I've never competed, so I've never prepped, but I have trained for a marathon and done a marathon. And it's funny because I can look back and like remember the training, and I remember like, okay, yes, it was like painful in the moment, but I can't really remember that pain, right? I can't like put myself into that painful environment or mindset, but I can remember what it was like to cross that finish line. And I can, that sticks with me so much more than, like you said, getting up early and having to run or having to bike. It's crazy how in the moment it seems so terrible. And then you look back and you're like, maybe I'll do that again.
Yeah, and I think that's something that like the more that you do it, whether it's bodybuilding or something else that's that's difficult as well, you learn like different ways to change your mindset. So that's something that I've really focused on this prep because as you're prepping, your hunger gets high, your food gets low, and everything. You can get hangry and grumpy, and that's something that I focused on because that was definitely something that I experienced. But it's also something that I'm choosing to do myself. So I've tried to be more positive this prep. I've tried to be, if I'm in a bad mood and I can't shake the bad mood, I'm just be quiet because nobody. It's not. I don't need to be rude to somebody else. Or like when I was getting ready for the Arnold, we had a compressed prep because I got a late invite. So I had to do a lot of cardio in a short amount of time. So I was doing almost 3 hours of cardio a day. So I'm getting back on the bike. I'm like, how can I make my legs move? And I'm like, okay, but you want to do the Arnold. Doing this cardio is going to make you look good at the Arnold. It's going to get you to that goal. So just freaking do it. And then I'm like, okay, so you almost have to like, even if you don't want to, find a way to make yourself want to do something.
Yeah. Incentivize it, or do something like that. I think is really helpful. And a lot of times it's like just having a goal, like just remembering your goal. If you don't have a goal, I think it is so much harder because it's like, why am I going to get up at 3 a.m. if I don't want to get on the Arnold stage, or if I don't want to go compete at this show, or if I don't want to try to step on the Olympia stage? It's like, what's actually pushing me out of bed? I think that at that point, that's when it is just infinitely harder to find that. And really having a why, I think, is a crucial thing. If you don't have a goal, is finding, and I think you have both, but finding that true why am I doing this, and that can be life changing for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And even if it's not bodybuilding, and like I keep saying that it ties into so many things, but it does. Reminding yourself that doing difficult things is the way that you get to the positive things that you want.
Yeah, and then doing those difficult things, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You do something hard, and then you pull from that experience later. It's like, oh, if I can do that, if I can get through that hard thing, I can get through this hard thing now.
Yeah.
You were kind of talking about it a little bit right there, but do you have any specific like techniques, or do you do anything on like on a normal basis to help you manage that stress during like a prep or during like an intense training, just an intense time of training? Is it meditation? Is it journaling? Is there anything specific that you do to manage that stress?
Yeah. So probably in the last 6 months, I started journaling. I journal every morning. So my morning routine is probably the calmest part of my day every single day. And it's the same every day. I will wake up an hour earlier than I necessarily need to in order to not change my morning because that's the only part that's not crazy. So I wake up, I do my check-ins, I make my coffee, and then I journal while I drink my coffee. And I just write down literally whatever I'm thinking. So if I wake up grumpy, I write that down and why. And then, like, a lot of times as I'm writing, I kind of work myself through it. What I need to do that day, how I'm going to make it positive, especially if I'm in a bad mood. Like, how am I going to turn this mood around? Because I don't want to sit in this all day long. What I hope is going to happen, what I'm happy about, what I'm, just whatever, literally whatever I'm thinking. And I've been told for years that journaling is so healthy and blah, 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 but it really does help just getting things out. And then you're not having to vent to anyone else. Like it's you just kind of dumping it onto paper. And then the other thing is really just reminding myself that like bodybuilding is a privilege. It's not cheap, the types of foods that we eat, protein powder, pre-workout, all that's like, it's not a cheap lifestyle. And not everyone can do it. So the fact that I get to, the fact that I have the time to allot to do the things that I want to is a privilege. So I get to do it. I shouldn't be complaining as much.
Yeah, it is. It's a funny kind of dichotomy to where like whether it's bodybuilding or whatever it is, like if you know, in most cases, if you're an adult, if you don't like your job or if you don't like where you're going to school or what you're majoring in, or if you don't like the people around you, it's a lot of times a changeable, fixable situation. Maybe not an easy thing to change or fix, but what's better to go through the hardship of change or just continue to kind of live in that misery. So, I think
Yeah.
that having like a respect for yourself almost too, and being like, yeah, this is my life. It's something that is, it's a privilege to just simply be alive. So let me put myself in that best situation.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people that I talk to, in bodybuilding, even at the highest levels, they really talk about like getting their pro card, becoming a professional. How did that feel for you? Was there like any surrealness to it? Was there any shock, to it, or tell us a little bit about what it was like to actually get that pro card?
Yeah, so it was a lot of feelings. Mostly relief. Um, to put it into perspective, so I got my pro card at Junior Nationals 2022. I did that same show 2021. Prejudging, there were 8 of us, and I ended prejudging in a bodybuilding show. You want to tend to end prejudging standing in the middle. That's kind of indicative that you're in the top or you won your show. Well, there was an even number, so I was split center. So then leaving prejudging, waiting, a couple hours before you get back to finals, we're like, did I get first? Did I get second? And we go back and I get second. So, I'm so close, and I've been so close so many times. So I told my coach, I was like, I want to take time. I want to come back to this same show, and I'm winning this show next year. So when I came back, it was again an even number, split center, and I was like, oh, like I don't know how I'm gonna handle this if I get second again. you know. Um, so a lot of it was relief because I did what my coach told me to do. I did what my husband told me was the best strategy. I'm like, I did all the things. So I needed to line up to what I was shooting for.
For you, is second place, because some people, it's harder to be like get second place than it would be to get last place. For you, what is your relationship with second place? How do you feel about second place?
So it really just depends on the situation. So in the moment when the last time I got second place at junior nationals, I was not happy. I recognized that the girls who got third were wishing they got second, but at the same time, I had gotten second so many times that I knew that first was attainable. It was so close. So that's what I was shooting for. So it felt like falling short. Now, but that's really just because I had gotten second so many times. So that just made me raise my bar for what I expected for myself. Now, going into the Arnold, completely different. I didn't go into that show expecting to get first place. I was hoping for fifth or sixth. So, so I'm very realistic. Just that particular time, it was like, I'd been so close so many times. It's like, I just want to level up from what I've done before.
And how did that impact getting second place the previous year, moving forward into that next season, trying to get that first place? How did that impact you? Did you carry that with you through your training and through your prep and through all that stuff? Like, how did that impact
Yeah.
your next year?
Getting second that time, I think humbled me. Prior to that show, I was doing every show. I was not taking any time off. I was just trying to get that pro card. And wasn't really recognizing how much work, and bodybuilding is also a time sport. Like you can't make muscle appear. And that placing finally is what made me realize, okay, you gotta do what people are telling you to do. Like, people keep telling you to take time off and you're not, and you keep falling short. So why don't you try what they're doing? Um, and I used that as my fire that whole time that I took off. So I had, in both of our bathrooms, I had pictures of that top 5 placing where I was not in the middle. Um, I had like something written on the mirrors that said I was going to get my pro card at the next show. Um, Even going to junior nationals the second time, I took my second place medal with me because I was like, I'm not coming back with 2 of these. I have to come back with a different one. But it definitely humbled me at what was necessary to reach the goals that I had set for myself in bodybuilding, not just trying to keep shotgunning it.
I feel like you just saying that, it made me have this connection between bodybuilding and cooking. And I don't know why, but it's really almost very similar. You know, you can only cook something so hot before it burns. And I feel like that's bodybuilding. You know, you can only train so hard. You can only push your body so hard until it burns out. And you know, it's better to follow the recipe. It's better to cook at the appropriate temperature for the appropriate time, and you're going to get that perfect outcome, or near perfect outcome. And the same is true with bodybuilding. You know, you can only train so hard, so often, so long. You can only diet so long, so often.
I haven't heard that analogy, but that's completely true. Like, that's perfect.
And then you mentioned before about how it was this experience, this emotion almost of like, what was the word you used? Getting your pro card was like a relief. Do you feel like that was a relief because you were putting too much pressure on yourself, or do you feel like it was a relief because, you know, was it more inward, or was it more an outward relief? Do you feel like
It was more just, I wasn't sure what more I could have done. Like, I felt like I did all of the things. I did, I did all my cardio. I followed the plan. I took the time that I was supposed to. So it was more just like, if doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do doesn't lead to the goal, then the process doesn't make sense to me then. And I think prior to that show, I wasn't doing all of the things because I was taking extremely short off seasons, just enough to put a little bit of body fat on. And I'm like, okay, I want to prep again. And I was trying to cut the process short, and I wasn't taking into account what was necessary. And through that off season and through taking the time and, following the plan, I felt like I learned more of what bodybuilding was. And I think if I had gotten second, I would have definitely second guessed all the things I thought I learned in that year.
And if you did, just, putting yourself into a situation where you got second, would it have been, do you feel like a situation where it's like, all right, let's run it back, let's try to get better? Would it have been something like, all right, this just truly isn't meant for me? Like, where do you feel like you would have been?
I don't think I would have stopped competing. I think I would have been upset for a couple hours. And then, but I think from what I learned the prior year, I think I would have listened to more strategy. I think I would have been at least more receptive to that. In 2021, when I got second, I wasn't that bummed. Like, I was shooting for first, but I wasn't really sure if it was possible. And I was just kind of hoping for first. It wasn't the same expectation I had set for myself. But then after I got second, I was like, I was so close. And my coach was like, you need to take time off. You need to grow. And I was like, no, I'm going to do a show in 2 weeks. And I went and got fourth. So, so I think I would have listened, but I don't know how that would have changed my trajectory.
I think it's so crazy because everybody has a different route. Everybody has this journey that they're on, whether it's like a 10-year journey to go pro, it's a 1-year journey to go pro, 20 years to get the Olympia stage. Like, everybody's on this different route with different results and different ways of going about it. But in regards to like you in that post season, after the season after you got second, Was it even like this recognizable difference? Do you feel like people were mentioning around you, like, hey, this, you have this different intensity about you, have this different like look in your eye, or you have this different, just different kind of energy about you?
Yeah, it was more like, so my coach is very realistic. He doesn't really blow smoke. So compliments you can typically take for what they are and trust them. And I think so. I mean, that was in June. It's probably like November. We're game planning for when my prep is going to start and all that. And I was just like, I don't want to do another show until you are sure I'm going to win. Like, I want to take as much time, I'm doing it now. Just make me keep doing it. And he was like, this will be different because you are acting like a pro now. And prior to that, and I think that's something with bodybuilding, like there might be an off chance where someone wins a pro card and they don't completely comprehend what it means. But for the most part, you learn how to be a professional athlete before you're awarded that professional athlete status. And that's how you get it, is because you're already performing like one. So I definitely had, and I think like that made my training sessions more intense because I started understanding what I put in and what I get out and the time that also has to come with it and the patience.
And it's funny because really recently, I can't remember when it was, but on social media, I saw a video or a live something. It was a bodybuilder talking about that same thing. And it's true, like you don't really reach the level of something and then start being that thing.
That was probably like the most common question after I won my pro card. It's like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel any different? And I'm like, no. I'm the same person. Like people keep asking me this, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be feeling that you think I should, but I'm the same person as I was Friday. I just have this cool card now.
Did it almost feel like that card was like this physical validation in some way of like, yes, I've been doing this, and this just kind of like shows like it's a physical representation of what I've been doing.
Yeah, so that was probably the most surreal thing. Like when we were packing up from the Airbnb after that weekend, and everyone's heading out, and I'm putting, I have it like back there, and I'm putting that in my car, and I was like, "This is mine! I won this! I've been going for this for like 3 years, and I finally won it." It was it probably hit me like a couple days after. On stage, it was more relief and excitement and happiness. And then a couple days after, it was more like, wow, like I really did that. I set this goal and I eventually got to it.
And because you got that goal, and it's like, man, a breath of fresh air in a way. It's like, okay, I finally got there. Was there any thought of like, wow, I just like got this result I've been working for 3 years. And now I have to like even up a little bit my game and continue doing the same things to continue to be competitive.
Yes. And that was kind of definitely intimidating. Because I did my pro debut 7 weeks after I won my pro card. So we just stayed and prepped and got better. And I'm like, going into that, Nelson was like, it's going to get harder. Like, be prepared because you thought this was hard. You did it, but it's going to get harder because now we're at a different level. And then I'm like, oh my God. I couldn't completely soak it in, I think, because I had to keep going. I had to figure out how to be better. And that was overwhelming for sure. And going into that first pro shows, I had no idea what to expect because I'd been doing the national shows for so long. I knew what to expect going into them. I knew that I should expect to be in the first call out. But for a pro show, I'm like, I don't know how I stack up to these girls who have been competing and training for 10 plus years. And I'm this baby who just got here. But it's also like, that's bodybuilding. So you're constantly trying to get better. So it was intimidating for sure, but it was also like once you get off stage, you're game planning the next thing. It's like, do I need to take a year off before I compete again? Or am I going to compete in 6 months? Or like, what's next? So there was kind of like a multi-dimensional situation there.
In competing in that first pro show, did you learn anything about like mindset, about intensity, about like what it takes just from being around a professional that has been there for a little while?
Not necessarily. It was more, I think I expected like intensity backstage, and it was more like everyone was much more on the same even playing field. Like everyone has done hours of cardio to get here. Everyone took it completely seriously. Everyone here is a professional. So there was no like, how many cookies can I eat? Like there was no nonsense. It was very much, we're here to do a job. And yes, it's a hobby, and yes, it's something that you do for enjoyment. But at that level, it's also kind of a job, especially when you're getting on stage. Like you've done all of this work. Now here's your presentation.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below. Because everybody kind of is on that similar level, you definitely have levels within the level, but what is it like to stand up on stage and you do see people who have been there for 10 years or whatever, and it's your first show? Is there any, not necessarily, I don't want to say like weirdness, but is there any like, if you win this show, I'm trying to think of how to say it, like, because that person's been trying to do the same thing you've been doing, and maybe you win
No.
the show or get a better placement over them. Is there any weirdness to that at all?
And I can say, like, I have felt like I'll still be happy, but I'm also like, there's a slight feeling of guilt almost. Like, I know what it takes to get here. That person also got here, and I beat them. And it's like, they've been doing it for longer, though. They've put in more years, they put in more time in the gym, like, why am I here and they're not? But understanding the sport, I think, helps with that. And unfortunately for some, fortunately for me, genetics play a big role in it. So, and that's not something that you can control at all. You're born with whatever you got, and you got to make the most of what you got. So it might take someone 10 years to get to one place where it takes another person 3 years to get to that same place. And unfortunately, that's a truth about bodybuilding. So I think, like, yes, the feelings are there, but also understanding why those situations happen is a little bit helpful. Because I mean, I still worked hard, like I shouldn't feel only guilt. But it's not like those feelings don't exist.
Going and getting invited to the Arnold, tell us a little bit about that experience and what that was like for you, and just getting informed of that.
That was a little wacky. So the only pro show that I had done prior to applying for the Arnold was my pro debut at the Tampa Pro. And I got third there, so I didn't even win. I haven't been to the Olympia. But the strategy that we had going into this year was to try to get an Olympia qualification early in the year so that I could take some time off and then prep again later, rather than prepping all year long. So because the March date kind of fell into the time frame we were going to be ready anyway, I asked my coach, I was like, why don't I just apply? He's like, okay, well, you are a no name. You are probably not going to get selected. So apply, we'll plan that as our date, and then we'll adjust if you're not on the list. And you have to start prep way before the list comes out, because the list doesn't come out until 8 weeks before the show. So we started prep end of October. And I'm like banking on it. I'm like, I'm doing the Arnold. They're going to pick me. I'll be the dark horse. Hopefully they pick me. The list comes out and I'm not on it. And we're like not that surprised. So then a couple weeks later, they announced that one girl dropped out and another girl got a late invite. So I was like, this is a thing. So I emailed the guy. I was like, hey, if somebody else drops out, I'll be ready. I'll do it. And he didn't email me back. And I was like, he'll just think I'm crazy. Or if someone drops out, he'll email me back. So whatever. So at 3.5 weeks out, I get a phone call and he's like, one of the girls, her appendix ruptured. If you want the spot, you can have the spot.
Wow.
So I called my coach. I said yes immediately because I'd already emailed him and said I would do it. And we were supposed to be 7 weeks out, and now we're 3.5. So I called my coach and I was like, hey, I just got an invite to the Arnold. And he was like, did you tell them that you were going to do it? And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh my God. So then we had to overhaul everything. And it was extremely strict from then till the show. But it was possible. We made it happen. But it was a whirlwind because I was planning to do it and then I wasn't on the list. And then I got like this last minute shotgun. If you want to do it, come on. And that, I mean, sending that email I probably was a little bit crazy, but prep will do that to you. But also like shoot your shot. I was a no name. It's not like it was going to hurt me, you know? And it paid off. So I'm so glad I sent that email.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a lesson learned for sure. Getting into the actual experience, tell us a little bit about that, and what was it like to be among just so many Olympians, so many people who, you're trying to get to where they were, you're to where they are and achieve what they have achieved. Like, tell us about that experience and just like how that has been transformative, I guess.
It was very surreal. Luckily, there was a lot of time where like they'd have us all meet as a group and then we'd walk over and sit in a holding room, and that was just them making sure that we were all together, that they had all the competitors, and also they'd take us through like back hallways so that people wouldn't get stopped by fans. And I'm like, I'm not that person. I'm not the one getting stopped by fans, but all the other girls here are. And the amount of time that I got to spend with the girls, I think really helped myself realize I'm this caliber now. Going into it, I was like, I'm this tiny person who nobody knows, and I got this random, I'm just filling a spot. That's kind of how I felt going into it. That also lit a fire because I was like, I want to prove that I'm not just a girl filling a spot. But I didn't feel like I could hang until I was back there with everyone. And also realizing like they're normal people. They're people that I've looked up to since I've been wellness, but they're normal, So it helped open my eyes and help me see myself a little bit more how other people see me, I guess.
How much did that boost your confidence like afterwards and be like, okay, I remember that at a point whenever like I didn't even see myself as I was, did that also kind of like bring it all together and help you see yourself as you truly were?
Yes, because that's exactly how I felt going into it. And then to be quite honest, when they did first call outs and they called my name, I thought it was an accident. So if you watch the video, I kept moving and didn't settle into my pose for a minute because I was expecting that, because every once in a while they'll misspeak and they'll call a number to the line, and then they'll say, actually, number 2, go back to the line. So I was waiting, like I was like, she's gonna send me back. If this was an accident, she's gonna send me back. And she didn't. And then we start going through quarter turns. And I was like, when we were in the back pose, I was like, I see myself on the screen and I was like, I'm here. Like I am doing it. Like, I wanted to be in the first call out and I'm in the first call out. Like at that point I'd won in my mind. Because there was only 4 in the call out. So I was shooting for like 6 and I'm already above what I thought I could do. So then from there, it was just exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy to, to have that experience of like doubtfulness and then that almost like immediate turn, that immediate like, oh wow, wait, no, this is real. This is the situation. I'm in this reality now. And it goes from like not even being like a few weeks before that, not even being a possible reality to one that was almost like a dream state, and then it just became real when you made that turn.
Yes, it was definitely a lot of like mountains and peaks, and there was a lot of emotions going back and forth. Like, how am I gonna do? I just don't want to fall flat on my face. Okay, now I'm really high.
Yeah. And then after the show's over, how do you take that in and like um utilize that moving forward, I guess.
So I'm just trying to ride the momentum. Um, the Arnold helped me see how well I can do. Um, and now I just want to reach that next level. So, I mean, placing fourth among the people that I was in that show with, now I expect myself to win a show. So that's the next goal. I know it may take more than one show. I've only done two, but I'm trying to stay in the mindset of when I was on stage in that first call out, realizing, okay, I am better than what I thought I was, and trying to stay, okay, remember how good they said you were.
Yeah. I think that's definitely one of the most challenging things in anything is like staying in the mindset of whenever you do something that makes you feel a certain way, a positive way, how can you bring that back? How can you like manifest that within any moment?
Like the hardest part of bodybuilding, I think, is the mind. Like your body can go so much further than your mind can. You have to figure out how to overcome what your brain is saying.
Because you have reached this level now and also kind of gaining more confidence, how do you continue to um how do you like what continues to motivate you? What is pushing you to be like, okay, let's put myself through that pain again. Let's keep going. Let's go through another rigorous prep. Like what in the obviously you have your goals, right? You want to get to the Olympia stage, but what do you feel like it is about that goal that drives you?
So, really, the whole like initially, the very first prep that I did, it was let me see if I can do this. And that's really what it still is. And I know that other people have different whys than that, but and they might be more deep and whatever, but that's mine. And it's really like, let me see what I can accomplish. Okay, I did it. What's harder? Let me see if I can get to that level. So it's really just like, how far can I push myself and how much can I achieve? Um, so is like as good as it felt to be fourth on the Arnold stage, I bet it would feel even better to win a show. So let me see if I can get there.
And is there any thoughts in your mind like, okay, if I kind of going back, I guess, to what I said before, when I can't see myself achieving those things, like because it is like, okay, let's see what I can achieve. What what to you then does the sport become? Does it still become something that you're doing for the competitive side of it? Is it something that you're doing still as more of just like a lifestyle thing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like once you hit that, maybe even if that wall, because talking to Cindy Gillian, she mentioned like, yeah, I keep, I win and I win, but at some point, like I'll either be done or I'll stop winning. So like, at what point for you will you kind of be like, okay, this is my experience. Maybe I'll have to like change what that experience is, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. So I mean, like my husband and I have talked long term, and like bodybuilding, being at the top of the sport is not a long time frame. We're talking like there was an 8-time Mr. Olympia, and that's it, you know? So, sure, you competed for years and years and years, but you're only at the top for a short amount of time because your body can only do so much. And life demands other things. So, um, I think eventually, once I hit that wall and once um, the tables turn and I go to where I'm not living and breathing bodybuilding 24/7, I think I'll still train. I think I'll still eat on a meal plan of some sort. Um, I can't imagine going back to not going to the gym, not doing cardio, Because those also feel good physically in general. Um, whether like I probably won't prep just to prep, you know. Once I'm done competing, I probably will never prep again. But I think I'll still have elements of bodybuilding in my life. I love to train. That was one reason I couldn't stay in bikini because I wouldn't stop training legs. So I couldn't get my legs to come down. Um, so I'll still do the aspects that I enjoy. Um, and then I might I've thought about how to stay in the sport in other aspects. So like promoting a show or um, I teach posing, so I could still do that. Just things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. And with that being said, as your bodybuilding career comes to an end, whether that's just with being an athlete or whether that is promoting and things like that afterwards, what is, if you have thought about, what is that mark or what is that legacy that you want to leave within the sport?
I don't know that I have an answer for that. Um, right now, I think what I think I'm seen as is someone who does the work and it pays off. You know, like I work a normal job. I'm a normal person. A lot of the top competitors only bodybuild. They have sponsors that pay enough that they don't have to have a 9 to 5 job or whatever, which is great. But I like that I've been able to show that you can be a mom or whatever and have these other life responsibilities and still reach pretty high attainability. Um, so maybe that, like an, I don't know how to put that into one word.
So basically, just you want to, kind of like you said, show that this is achievable, at least maybe not to the same degree or same level, because like I said, genetics do play a role. Like chasing your dreams is achievable regardless of your situation.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to have a picture perfect setup to make something happen.
Eventually we got to where we are today, and an event in 2 or 3 more years we'll be at a different level. And it's just because you did the action and you took it kind of day by day.
Yeah, exactly. I know, like, I try to, with social media and Instagram and stuff, I try to post what my normal days look like. And sometimes they're so hectic, there's no posts. But, like, yeah, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. People are messaging me, why are you up so early? It's like, I got to go to work. I got cardio and I got to go to work. So I got, like, something's got to give. Um, and just like that first prep, 100% flew by the seat of my pants. Like, didn't really, because I didn't fully expect what I had to do. You know, like, I didn't know how high cardio would get. I wasn't exactly sure when I would do it. I didn't truly understand that eventually you would have cardio every single day. So you will have to do it on work days too. You know, I didn't understand that. So there was a lot of like, okay, this is what my day looks like tomorrow. How am I going to do all the things? And you figure it out and like learning prioritizing and stuff. But it can be done. And I've had, you know, as humans, we like to make excuses. We like to find easier ways to do things. But taking the easy road's not always the best one. Um, so I like that over the years, as I've learned by trial and error and flying by the seat of my pants sometimes and figuring it out. Now, when people message me and they're like, hey, I'm graduating nursing school and I'm going to be working 3 12s a week at night. How do I do it? I'm like, I got an answer for you. This is what worked for me, at least, you know?
It's almost better that way, because if you really knew what it was going to take when you first started, it would probably be so intimidating. It would be like, you wouldn't want to do it, because you not knowing that prep was going to be that hard was a blessing, because you might not have started. It's like
Yeah.
you just build, you continue to build, and in the same time you're building your own resiliency too. So that thing that is harder the next time, it's still hard, but you've built on those prior experiences.
Yes. And then I think it truly teaches you like, if you truly want something, you will do what it takes to get there. If you don't want it, then you won't, and that's fine. But the constant question since the Arnold is like, what did you have to do in 3.5 weeks? I'm like, let me tell you. Would most people do 3 hours of cardio a day and get down to meals that are mostly just fish and green beans? Probably not. That sounds ridiculous. If Nelson had told me that Monday when I got that phone call that this is what it's going to look like, I might have second guessed it. But instead, it's like, I'm going to one day at a time because I want to be on that stage. So I'm going to do what it takes to get there. So just throw it at me. Like, let's just go.
It's true across life. It's like, okay, first grade, you're learning these things. Don't tell me what I'm going to be learning senior year. Let me get there. But yeah, it was really good getting to chat with you tonight. I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing about your journey, and look forward to seeing what happens this season.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you want to, before you head out there, if you want to share your social media or anything like that, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. I mostly only have Instagram because I don't know how to work anything else. So it's A_fit_Adams. And then my posing page is there as well. So if you're interested in bikini or wellness, I can help you.